Welcome, MLS listing subscribers. My name is Dave, and I'm here today with Tom and Michelle. This is a brand new podcast that we're doing. We're going to do several times a year over the coming next year. And this one's going to be based on our partner economist, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg's Q4 2022 thoughts. So we've got a few thoughts to go over. I'm going to go ahead and read each topic, and then we're going to kick it on over to Tom and Michelle for a discussion. Tom and Michelle, how are you doing today?
Hey, Dave. Good to be here.
Dave, thanks for having us. Looking forward to the discussion.
Fantastic. Yeah, for this podcast, we've identified three main talking points, which we have a possible 2023 recession, foreclosures, unemployment, and how this affects the Bay Area real estate market. So let's go ahead and let's go with topic one. I'm going to read Dr. Elliot Eisenberg's thoughts on that, and then we'll get your comments from Tom and Michelle. So let's begin.
All right, so let's take a look at our first topic here. And again, these are from the words of Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, our partner economist. And again, this complete document is available on our MLSListings.com page under the Media Center. So here we go. Given the current economic trajectory and the fact that interest rates will remain elevated well into 2023, it certainly seems likely that the economy will continue to weaken. The big questions are by how much and how quickly does that happen? Will we see a soft landing or a recession? And if we have a recession, will it be a mild one or one that is relatively deep? While most economists expect a recession in 2023, some are predicting the hope for soft landing. That said, the difference between these two alternatives is likely to be small. Those expecting a recession anticipate a mild one, with unemployment rising 2 to maybe 2.5 percentage points and no calendar year 2023 GDP growth. Those forecasting a soft landing see unemployment rising by 1 percentage point and GDP growing anemically. Michelle?
Tom, I think that Dr. Eisenberg's suggestion that this might be a soft landing, which we hear echoed, right, from other economists, that maybe we're doing a little bit better than formerly anticipated, or that we just may pull out of this with inflation getting a little bit under control and some things of that nature. I think that might be comforting to some of our agents who are trying to guide clients into what to expect in 2023, right? That's why this is also important. And that's why we're doing a podcast like this, which is to take a step back, look at what Dr. Eisenberg is saying, and then pull from that a couple of, points that agents can talk to their clients about. So, it's really interesting how this year is starting off and the idea of a soft recession. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, there's actually some really good news out of Europe. I saw in the paper today that the economy there grew a tiny bit. And I think later on this week, we're going to learn more about the U.S. economy, so that soft landing may actually be occurring. And I think that is really good news for our area and our members.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things is about 2023 and so far is that while we don't have data for 2023 yet, we haven't had a complete month. So Aculist isn't going to be able to provide that for, a bit here. We are anecdotally hearing that activity is picking up, right? So in many meetings, we hear that there are multiple offer situations. There is this demand coming out and for this time of year, which is seasonal. We usually see that, right? But maybe earlier, or maybe in anticipation of what the Fed might do coming up. But foot traffic, open houses, that increase of demand is something that could pull up push up the sales cycle, or maybe make it a more robust year than previously thought. I mean, there's all sorts of different information out there, Tom, and we have to be really careful. We can't be forward looking. We are basically making points, trying to make clarity and, maybe color around that which Dr. Eisenberg is saying. So trying to make it specific to the Bay Area for sure. But I think all of these are points for people to keep in mind as, you're thinking about how to approach your clients moving forward. I mean, there's so many things that are going to come out here shortly that could change all of this. And we're aware of that, but mild, usually the Bay Area is less affected, or sometimes can kind of weather the storm a little better because of the types of jobs and because of the tech industry. And this particular time, I think, is really interesting that the Bay Area has actually been more affected by, layoffs. And so we've seen, as a percentage, a small percentage, but quite a few people being affected here in the area, which would mean, would-be buyers. And so usually we're thinking of this like kind of a national issue, and maybe we have a little bit of a leg up. Dr. Eisenberg will say a little bit insulated from some of the things that happen nationally. And so while this might be a soft landing, if there are tremendous more job losses, or if that demand is decreased by people who are a little bit hesitant to maybe go out and purchase a new home, or even jump into the housing market as a first-time buyer, that would affect the pie for our agents, right? How many, transactions take place and how many dollars are transacted. And that would be something that would affect our users quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But, as you stated, we have anecdotally heard from agents that activity is picking up. I know I met a friend for lunch in Palo Alto over the weekend, and we went for a walk after lunch, and we walked by an open house, and that open house had at least 4 different couples looking at the house at the same time on this past Saturday. Now, usually activity picks up after the Super Bowl. We do expect that to happen, but we're already seeing more activity than certainly at the last part of last year.
Absolutely. I mean, that's all, trends, right? So we'll see that potentially in the data coming up. One point I did want to make on this particular section that Dave read from Dr. Elliott's Q4 2022 is the GDP. Now, he talks about this all the time, and I'm sure everybody out there understands GDP, but I did want to stop on it for a second and just talk about that as a trickle-down effect. So, when you're reading this document, you should go read the entire thing. But if you were talking about, when we say, he says 2.5 percentage points in 2023 in terms of growth, GDP referencing gross domestic product. And so I just went to the internet just to make sure, because my explanation may not be what our listeners need, but total monetary or market value of all finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. So what that means is not directly affecting the real estate market, but how GDP, if there's growth, meaning additional goods and services produced within the United States, meaning we have trade, meaning businesses have a better bottom line, and therefore you have people employed and you have money moving around, right? So that's the stimulation of the economy. And so when that happens and people feel more confident, comfortable in their jobs, comfortable in their spending, then they would trickle down to real estate. So as the biggest purchase you'll make in your household in your lifetime, real estate, you have to feel really great about where you are in your employment and where you are financially to make that kind of investment. And that's why many economists talk about GDP when talking about the housing market, because it ultimately will really affect that. I thought you probably have some really wise things to say about that, Tom.
Well, the other sort of half of GDP is the interest rate and what the Fed is doing. And so we know over the last half year, they've been slowly raising the interest rate to put the brakes on inflation. And they are actually meeting tomorrow. And so everybody is expecting them to once again raise the interest rate a little bit. And if it comes as expected, they're supposed to only raise it by 25 basis points, so 0.25%. And that would actually be a really good thing, because that means they're backing off and they're seeing that inflation is starting to ebb, and that would be a really, really good thing for the economy overall, and help us to maintain positive GDP so we don't go into a recession.
Or a strong one.
Yeah.
If at all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oculus Market Data Reports are ideal marketing tools to share with your clients and prospects. Choose from over 20 data reports that are customized to your needs, including your photo and contact info. Oculus reports are free, easy to use, immediately available, and unlimited, so you can download as many as you need whenever you want. Even better, we've introduced more reports for 2023, including a new price distribution report and a newsletter report. Plus, we've updated the city market report and added even more data to the Aculus Weekly. Take advantage of this valuable subscriber benefit by going to the Pro site and clicking the Aculus Market Report button.
All right, moving on to our second topic here. Again, these from the words of Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. In terms of existing home prices, the most important story to watch is housing inventory. At the national level, we have a bit more than 3 months of inventory on the market, which is still well below the commonly accepted healthy level of about 5 to 6 months. And that is why prices have stayed at historically high levels. If inventory levels start to rise suddenly, that could be a sign of trouble, but most experts don't see that as likely, mainly because of the mortgage lock-in phenomenon. The vast majority of homeowners with a mortgage have a fixed rate mortgage that is well below current market rates, making it highly unlikely that they will sell or upgrade by choice. Moreover, the job market remains surprisingly strong, and most homeowners are flush with equity that they accumulated over the last several years in the skyrocketing housing market, making a wave of foreclosures or forced sales unlikely. Finally, the top-to-bottom redesign of the home mortgage market resulting from Dodd-Frank and regulatory updates culminated in substantially tighter credit underwriting standards. It would now take 40 to 45% decline in home prices to cause damage comparable to the 2006 to 2009 housing bust. And even back then, the average price decline was 28%.
Tom, this is why in hearing, the words of Dr. Elliot Eisenberg and his Q4, now remember this is looking at, last year, but this is why we're out at brokerages, at meetings, offices, and creating content that centers on inventory, right? And so not only inventory, but new listings, and what the market whole is, because it's a really important point to say, how do we know when prices may or may not go up and down? Where are there upward pressure on prices? When is there downward pressure on prices? And I think what Dr. Eisenberg was mentioning or speaking to in this document is that you have to keep your eye on it because it's a clue, right? So it's a big clue. So there's seasonal change, which we've seen and has not been different in 2022 leading into 2023, down in the winter, up in the down in the end of the year, I should say, up in the beginning of the next year. They're both winter. But, there's a big difference, Tom, and we talk about this about when homes sit. So inventory rising because homes have not sold versus inventory rising because it's a seasonal time and there's so many new listings coming on, which are then coming off, but still there's so many transactions. And so I wanted to distinguish that for the listeners and say inventory itself as a number is really important. What's left on the last day of the month or the year or whatever time period you're looking at. But there's two ways to look at it, which is, are things moving or are things sitting, right? And so there could be some other things, DOM, associated with that, and, new listings, if there aren't more new listings than inventory. So, maybe your thoughts on inventory and how that relates to prices, as Dr. Eisenberg was mentioning in the piece.
Yeah. So, as you stated, inventory is any active contingent listing that's still on the market at the end of the month. Basically, any house that you can still bid on that's available. And so in that way, I think of inventory as choice. It's how much choice is out there for the buyers. How many homes can they look at in a given area? It also means for sellers, how much competition is there. And so inventory is critical, as you stated. But the other point that you brought out, which I think is really interesting, is it inventory because there's new listings flooding the market, or is it inventory because listings are staying on the market longer? And I think that's what our agents need to look at to be able to talk to their buyers and sellers about what their strategy should be for either selling their home or making an offer on an existing home. So that's how I think of it, and I think that inventory is really important, but then there's also why is it there? And I think Dr. Eisenberg talks about it a little bit. Do you want to say more about that?
Oh, is this just about, well, I was going to chime in with the fact that, as you were saying, when there's no inventory and how to watch inventory, I was just out in most of the month of January. If anyone saw me at Silver or Score, or I went to an office, one of the charts that I showed was that the peak number of closed sales and new listings, highest median price and highest closed sale to list price ratio were in varied months throughout the past 3 years. And so saying that while we're talking about seasonality and we're talking about expectations where inventory generally does rise this time of year, it's not when's the best time to sell, when's the best time to list. As you're talking to your clients, it moved tremendously throughout the counties, tremendously throughout the last 3 years. It moves around. And so when people come on the market, and so when there's the highest inventory, really could be several different months out of the year. We've seen it in September and August. We've seen it in, February and March, and it moves around. So that's, sorry, Tom, what came to mind when I was thinking about, what can you rely on? Well, that's definitely not something you can rely on in the Bay Area, particularly in some of the voluminous counties. So if you want to expand on your point, I think it'd be great.
Well, yeah. So Dr. Eisenberg also references, why inventory grows, and one is moving for choice, and but there's also the moving for a life event that may force a move, and so there are different types of reasons why people put their homes on the market. And, getting back to what we were just talking about, are we going to have a recession or a soft landing? Are there going to be more of those moving for choice or life events forcing a move that is going to build up the inventory? And I don't know whether inventory is going to raise substantially or not. I think Dr. Eisenberg expects it to grow a bit. So I think that's an interesting thing for us to watch.
Absolutely. And it will be something we talk to him about because he will be coming to visit. He does the live events and in some cases recorded events. But either way, I think we'll all be watching inventory all year long. I mean, I think his point about moving for choice or forcing a move is that both are demand, right? So while people may not move for choice as much this year because of some uncertainty, either in the labor market or just in terms of getting a good deal or paying higher interest rates, whatever the reason, there's always going to be people who have to move. And that's why there's always demand in the Bay Area. It's just a matter of, will it match supply, or, will so many people hold off in selling their homes that we have kind of an equilibrium? And so, we'll have to definitely keep track of that for him. I mean, he points out in this piece that the reason that the current market is so different than that between 2008 and 2011 were foreclosures. And he's mentioned this several times on several of our live events. But his point about the fact that even if you are forced to move or forced to sell, your job moves, you choose to leave, whatever the case, is that there's a lot of equity in the homes in the area. So most folks do have equity. So we're not seeing foreclosures spike. We're not seeing that contribute to the inventory. We're just not, right? So currently we don't have that. I mean, we do know price decreases, withdrawn properties, canceled properties, all up broadly, right? 2022 compared to 2021, we know that. But the number of foreclosures and short sales stayed low because of the equity people have in their homes, and because there's always going to be this demand here in the Bay Area. And so, I mean, it will be really interesting, but I don't see how we don't talk about inventory, for the rest of the year, Tom. I think it's going to be one of those critical pieces. And it's why he talked about it so much in his write-up about the last quarter.
Yep. It's a good thing for us to keep our eye on, especially as we talk about his third point that Dave's going to read for us now.
In this topic, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg takes a look at how does unemployment and stock market affect the local market. So here we go. The MLS listings area continues to be disproportionately impacted by both the softening of the tech sector and the significant stock market declines of 2022. The tech and growth-heavy NASDAQ is down about a third, significantly more than the Dow decline of 8.8% and the S&P 500 dip of 19.4%. Rising interest rates have pushed down the present value of future earnings, forcing stock prices lower. As the stock market has declined, so too has the ability to raise private and venture capital, the lifeblood of tech startups. And we expect 2023 to be another difficult year for entrepreneurs and unicorn wannabes. The MLS listings area has also seen the direct impacts of higher interest rates on some home sales, as higher interest rates on high-priced properties may drive some potential buyers out of the market completely. Additionally, while many service sectors, especially finance and banking, are mandating return to office, the percentage of tech workers returning to the office remains relatively low, thus allowing many employees in the tech sector to remain in areas they may have fled during the pandemic. While the largest impacts from the reluctance to return to the office have been in San Francisco itself, the rush to purchase in the MLS listings area appears to have subsided. On the flip side, however, it's likely that many existing homeowners in the MLS listings area, those with considerable home equity and a low interest rate mortgage, are not likely to relocate anytime soon. Importantly, while we are seeing sizable layoffs in the tech sector, data shows that 79% of workers who lost their job at a tech firm found new employment within 3 months, and 37% found a job within a month.
So in this excerpt, Tom, I think the reason we picked this one, this is a long document that he provides, right? So he produces a lot of different thoughts, both on the general economic overview and then a regional look. I can't say it enough, encourage people to go read the document in its entirety. But the reason we picked out this particular piece was because I think it's important to talk about, really hone in on the Bay Area, right? And especially the counties that we cover. And so I think I jumped the gun a little bit on talking about how the, Bay Area generally can maybe avoid some of the economic downturns or maybe fare a little bit better in them. So, that's going to maybe be a little repetitive. I apologize for that, but I don't know that we can talk about it too much. I think the really interesting part of what Dr. Eisenberg says here is to focus on value of stock, right? And your stock portfolio and how equity is a big driver in the Silicon Valley particularly. So just to go back to that, so the mention of the decline of the S&P, so that's generally referencing stock. So this is, common knowledge, and a lot of people may fast forward this a little bit, but it's really referencing how well stocks are doing in general, right? And the reason that's so important is because it's a significant portion of wealth for many Bay Area residents, right? Stock value can give you either, it could be sold. So stock could be sold to purchase a home, right? So become ultimately part of your down payment or part of bringing your payment down on a home. Stock can be used in qualification for loans. So we know that that's really important because it's part of your overall, net wealth. And stock value could ultimately be part of a household's affordability consideration. In other words, if something changed, or if this, was to be more expensive, or as you're bidding, perhaps there's a multiple offer situation, you go over what you targeted, you could say, well, I could sell stock, I could, move some money around. And so it's part of the consideration on both a monthly payment or even in just, securing the home that you're interested in. And so while it seems like they're, kind of far away from each other, and when he's mentioning this, it reminded me of like economics class in college where you're like, and how does this affect us, in the real world? But we all know that that's oftentimes how people pay for a home that maybe is valued or going to be paid for over what it's valued by an appraisal and things of that nature. So I just really wanted to stop on that for a second, Tom, and just make sure that people understood that that's why that tie for Dr. Elliot Eisenberg is so critical, in this particular, wrapping up 2022. It all has to do home equity, interest rates, and all, affordability has a large part to do with stocks or equity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so one of the things to look at is the big tech companies have taken some steps over the last couple of months, and I believe Google and Facebook have had some reductions in force. I think that's gone around the Bay Area. Notably, Apple has not had any large-scale reduction in force. I think their earnings come out on February 2nd, and we'll learn about the health of the company then. But for a lot of Bay Area residents that work in high tech, the value of their stock portfolio is critical to the kind of home that they can afford. Go ahead.
No, continue on, Tom. You're on a roll.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, when we talk about the Bay Area, we also include the Santa Cruz, Monterey, San Benito counties, and we're seeing people move into those areas as well as part of the work from home revolution. That even though some companies are calling people back, there are other companies that are allowing people to work from home for a portion of the week, the entire year. So we're seeing the place where people live is expanding.
Oh, absolutely. And we saw that in prices, right? And just transactions in some of the South counties, people who could be a little bit farther away if you didn't have to be in every day. And so it's interesting in this excerpt that he talks about this, return to office. And while the percentage he writes is remains relatively low, it's really interesting because as people move back into work, 5 days, 3 days, whatever it is, it will be interesting to see if that raises the median price or return some of that value to homes located, more city center or city adjacent, where, in the last few years, we've seen where people said, hey, I'll take the extra bedroom and move out a little farther because I don't have to, drive up the 101 every day. And so that will be really interesting. And I think that's why when Elliot does, or Dr. Eisenberg does a great write-up like this, it's specific to our area. And it's something that we look for, in terms of work from home, where, by and large in the tech sector, it was a higher percentage of people who were able to do that than in other, markets, even within California or nationally. So I think changes in these policies could really affect what people do and where demand is created. And so it will be really interesting to see, if you start to see those a premium paid or higher sale to list price or higher median prices on, some of those tech adjacent markets. Really. So
it's just a super interesting story that I can't take my eyes off of course, and I just look forward to seeing how this plays out, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that soft landing and for expanded GDP and a vibrant, healthy Bay Area real estate market.
Exactly. I was mouthing it along with you, Tom. I mean, I think that as we, pulled these points, we talk about, what's going on, how you look for these stats, how you collect this, how you talk to your clients about these really big issues. His point, Dr. Eisenberg's point, that there will always be demand for homes in the Bay Area. There will always be those leaving for various reasons, but highlighting in his document how most people who are laid off in the tech community find a job in a reasonable amount of time, months. And so that could also affect how things go in 2023. So, if this thoughts of a holding strategy, people kind of holding off in the market, maybe we'll see a later peak, we'll have to keep on it. And that's why Aculus brings so many stats. And that's why we're doing month end. And that's why we do rolling 90-day. We even produce an Aculus weekly, right, Tom? So that, we can see things and kind of look ahead at what has trended in the last couple of years to be able to give our subscribers some points to talk to their clients about. So with you, hey, I'm looking forward to another year of not only Dr. Eisenberg's thoughts on each quarter, which are going to be published and are always available, but also these podcasts where we can bring you real estate information and talk about our markets. I look forward to his events, which we have one coming up. So thanks, Tom. I really appreciate talking to you about this. We'll leave it to Dave to get us out of here.
Yep. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Dave.
Do you have questions about an MLS listings product or service? Got feedback on how we can improve an existing product or suggestions for new services that would make your job easier? Let us hear from you at MLS Listings Open Forum online event, happening on the last Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. Members of the MLS listing team will be on hand live to answer your questions and hear your feedback and suggestions. Don't feel like chiming in but just want to listen? You can do that too. And if you can't stay for the entire session, you can simply drop in as you please. Our next MLS Listings Open Forum is on February 28th at 2 p.m. Watch the pro site and our social media channels for announcements with the registration link.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you found this podcast to be of interest. You can find the document in its entirety on MLSListings.com, just under the Media Center tab. If you like this, let us know. We're planning to do it again after Dr. Eisenberg's next write-up, which will be in April. Dr. Eisenberg is coming back also on February 14th, so keep an eye out on the Pro homepage to register for the live event. Otherwise, it'll be on YouTube after the show. And stay tuned for more summary points made by Dr. Eisenberg regarding the Bay Area real estate market.
With the exception of Santa Cruz County, where median single-family home prices rose 4.7% to $1,270,000, most of the MLS listings area saw year-over-year price declines in the last quarter of 2022. The highest priced single-family homes were in San Mateo County, where the median price of $1,735,000 declined by 8.7% compared to last year. Homes in Santa Clara County declined by 6.1% to $1,550,000. Monterey County prices declined 2.8% to $825,000, while prices in San Benito County declined 2.1% to $775,000. Inventory levels rose about 50% over last year. The largest year-over-year inventory gain was in single-family homes in Santa Cruz County, up 112.8% to 200 active listings, while the smallest was in Monterey County, up 34.5% to 335 active listings. Inventories of common interest properties were up about 50% across the region compared to last year. Single-family months supply of inventory continues to increase year over year but remains relatively tight. In Santa Clara County, months supply of inventory rose from 0.2 months at the end of 2021 to 0.9 at the end of 2022, the largest percent gain in inventories across the region. There is 1 month supply of inventory in San Mateo County, while Santa Cruz has a 2.2 month supply. Monterey County has a 2.6 month supply, and San Benito County has 2.8 months of inventory. Single-family average days on market rose again this quarter and ranged from a high of 53 days in San Benito County to 42 days in Monterey County, 35 days in Santa Cruz County, 30 days in San Mateo County, and a low of 28 days in Santa Clara County. The most expensive townhomes and condos across the region are in San Mateo County, where prices were virtually flat compared to last year at $901,000. Townhome and condo prices in Santa Clara County declined 4.4% compared to last year to a median price of $884,000. The single townhome sold in San Benito County pushed the median price up to $689,000, which is a 32.8% increase. Prices in Santa Cruz County rose 13.4% to $811,000, and prices in Monterey County declined 4.7% to $604,500.